This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you had a great weekend. The Winnipeg Jets and their fans sure did. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you for the next couple hours, looking ahead to a big 3-game road trip out west for the Jets this week, starting tomorrow night, late night game in LA against the Kings. And of course, we'll recap the big 4-0 and 3-1 wins over the Jersey Devils and the Vancouver Canucks on the weekend at Canada Life Center. Mike McIntyre is going to join us coming up first. And we're going to talk about, just how special this season has been and some of the incredible performances with our go-to guy for Winnipeg sports history, our buddy the Scooch, Joe Pascucci. Really looking forward to that. It is going to be a real fun show. I already see a lot of folks in chat, including our pal Kittens31. Jaden was there with his dad at the game on Friday night, along with our biggest group yet for a Winnipeg Sports Talk game of the month. And we did it, fam. 6-0, a perfect undefeated record for WST games of the month this year, finishing it up. And there you have the picture. That's not the entire crew, but afterwards, just folks that were still around the game or that we could wrangle up. We did a great pick, and, there's Steph, who I think was at pretty much all the games, Dan Jets fan and Running Man, and Bridget, Phyllis was there. Kabilis, I think, was at most of them as well. And then you see the Gitch right there with the white hat there with Dan in the middle. But, man, it was and just an awesome group of WSTers that had a great time at the game and, of course, left pretty darn happy after another big win. Listen, I'm going to bring Remo and we'll talk about that and more. But first up, just a huge thanks to the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Our great partners at Coolbet, Princess Auto, Rolly's Transfer, Canadian Club, St. Vital Dental Center and Manitoba Battery, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, fansfirst.ca, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, the Winnipeg Jets, Royal Sports, and we will get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Welcome to everybody in chat. Great to have you all with us, and shout out to all of you listening to Winnipeg Sports Talk on the podcast today. And welcome to you, Michael Remis. How about that for a successful, fun, winning weekend?
Yes, very successful weekend. And what a night that was Friday. The Jets scoring 2 goals in the first 2 minutes blew the roof off the place. People were having fun. I don't want to say the game was over, but the winning goal was scored. I mean, it was a shutout, so the winning goal was scored within the first 2 minutes. People were fired up Friday against New Jersey. It was awesome. And, yeah, we had a huge group there. When the Jets are 28-6-4, I mean, it's possible we could have seen some losses, but we were undefeated with the group, plus the 2 Boston Pizza watch parties with Little Brown Jug. Won those 2 games as well. So when we had a gathering, either at the game or on the road, 8-0, pretty awesome stuff. And again, the atmosphere in the building, we were walking around the 300s. I'll never forget heading into the washroom with you at intermission. Everyone's like, Huss, Huss, Huss. It was quite a scene. People wanted to have a good time. I was telling people, like, I've never seen anything like that. So it gets you excited. If you can't, we talked about playoff tickets last week. I think they're going to be scarce. Well, they will be scarce when it starts up. But these games, very important for the Jets to win, to get first in the Central. And they're on a sellout streak here now, 5 in a row. awesome stuff, and the fans, I think, have brought it the last few games.
Oh, they certainly have. I mean, and listen, I mean, the team's doing their part. I mean, the start on Friday night, I mean, we got out there early. It was great to see everyone that came out for, and shout out to the Jets. The early access going back to Gate 6 was just perfect. We had our spot before the game, always taken care of by Barb and Dana up in the 316 bar. We kept them busy before the game as well, and appreciate that group. And then, I mean, you scored 2 goals in the first 2 minutes. I mean, it really does set the tone. And for it to be Alex Iafallo, who's taking Big Velarde's place while he's out on the top line, followed by our guy, the Gus Bus, in his first shift back into the lineup. I mean, that game could not have started any better. And my favorite part about that game was that they shut the door on Jersey and did the job for Connor and net. I mean, I think we could count at least 3 games this season where the Jets were up 4-0, 5-0, in the third period, and there was a goal that, happened in the last sort of 5 minutes to spoil a shutout. That did not happen. And, it's funny because Leon Draisaitl came back on Saturday, tied the game, won the game in overtime. Everyone's like, oh, Draisaitl's back, Draisaitl for MVP. Connor Hellebuck won 2 games on the weekend and gave up 1 goal. And that's the sort of performances he's been doing all year long. So it seems like it's a 2-horse race in the heart. We'll see what Scooch has to say about that a little bit later on. But it could not have started much better for the Winnipeg Jets. And then to their credit, they played that defensive game that's made them number 1 in the league in goals against and shut the door. Of course, AI had another one later on. Mark Scheifele got a goal. And Scheifele became the number 1 scorer in Jets 2.0 history as well. Now, you might say that's weird that they didn't make a bigger deal of that, or there wasn't really anything at the game. It wasn't really talked about. This wasn't the quote-unquote franchise record because Blake Wheeler had some points with the Atlanta Thrashers that still count towards that. But if we were talking about Jets 2.0 players, I mean, scoring in a Jet uniform from 2011 until now, Mark Scheifele is number 1. And in all Winnipeg Jets NHL history, he now only trails the great Dale Hawerchuk and Thomas Steen in points. And he'll be tracking those individuals down over the next few seasons. He continues the extension that he signed a couple years back. So, Friday night was great. But of course, they had to get that done, Remis. And it's all about TCB, taking care of business and getting 2 points, because it doesn't look like the Dallas Stars are letting up anytime soon.
Yeah, first, I do want to say, Friday before the game, we showed up to the bar there outside 316, and they had a sign for private party or private function with the curtains up. I was like, oh, who's this party for? Wait, it's for us. It's for the WST group. So that was super cool. Felt like a really exclusive event. And yeah, we're following this Dallas team, and they don't lose. And they've got this cupcake schedule. It's not helping. The Jets are doing their part. Winning. They lost to Buffalo. Funny enough, Washington, who they're fighting with for the President's Trophy, also lost to Buffalo yesterday. But the Jets won, 3 games since they're on a 3-game win streak. But Dallas is keeping it rolling too. They're getting outplayed in a game like Calgary. And I think Seattle played a pretty good game too on Saturday. But Dallas just keeps coming up with the wins. And now they're alternating nights. Dallas is playing their second game in Seattle. They played Saturday. Now they're playing again tonight, 9:00 Central. And, Dallas they're on a heat of their own. They have Philly win in overtime, Minnesota win, Edmonton win, Calgary win. Edmonton without Draisaitl, McDavid, and Skinner, and, then they play Seattle. So we'll see what happens. I think we got that game circled in April, second week, where the Jets that's a massive, massive game. But if the Jets keep winning, Dallas will run out of room. But it seems like Dallas, they need to lose here once in a while. But we will be tuned in tonight.
So the Jets have 8 games remaining. They have won 51 games this year. 4 clear, or actually I should say 3 clear of the next team. That's the Dallas Stars. It's kind of funny that the Capitals are actually third in wins. But because of overtime losses, they're technically second in the race for the President's Trophy. And I have to say, Reem, like, it's nice to see the Jets. Oh, that's cool. They're 3 points up on Washington for number one in the league. But that just seems like such a secondary conversation right now to being up on 6 on the Dallas Stars, who we know are charging. We know have that soft schedule, as you mentioned. And it really does seem like it's going to be hard work right until the end. And there's not going to be a time for the Jets to even let up before you get to the end of the season if they want to lock down first in the West, which is probably going to coincide with being first overall in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, this race, very important. You don't want to play Dallas or Colorado. You want to have home ice as well. And I think it would be a bit of a disappointment being in first all year to finally be passed, in the final week or whatever it would be in the season. But they're playing hard. I think the fans are coming out. They know how important these games are. You look at the Jets. I mean, first in points, first in wins, best goal differential here, least goals against. So, I mean, the home record, 28 wins. It's incredible. And yeah, the goalie getting recognized, Hellebuck, recognized by the NHL today for third star of the week, 3-0 with the shutout, 1.00 goals against average, Huss, this week. I mean, this has been a dream season, and you want it to keep going and keep rolling into the playoffs. But, it's funny. We're talking about, okay, who is the Jets' opponent going to be? Well, look at the wild card standings. St. Louis, 9-1 in their last 10 on a 9-game win streak. What, they bring back Gloria? This year, they're tied with Minnesota. And Minnesota, they've been dealing with injuries. They've got a negative goal differential. I think Vancouver and Calgary, you can close the book. They're done. It will be Minnesota, St. Louis in the wild card spots. But which one will be wild card 1 and which one will be wild card 2? I think that is. And if St. Louis keeps going the way they're going, they're going to pass Minnesota here. So we will see what happens.
Well, and tonight, the Wild, this is just a weird part of the schedule. You have Dallas playing back-to-back games against Seattle. Tonight, the Wild and Devils finish up their home and home.
What?
And I guess every now and then, I think that might have happened earlier on this season where the Jets played an East team once and then played them again. Wasn't it Florida? I think it was sort of a weird home and home where there was a couple days difference and then both teams came in here.
Florida was one, yeah.
But anyways, that's like, I was looking on Coolbet and I'm like, oh, did I leave this tab open for 2 days and I'm still getting the odds from Saturday on the Minnesota Jersey game? No. They're playing again tonight, this time in Jersey. And it's kind of funny for the Wild perspective. That might be good for them because they are 21-11 on the road. They're 19-17 at home. They've been one of the best road teams all year long in the National Hockey League. So the Wild have the advantage of one extra game to be played. The Blues have the advantage of being the hottest team in the National Hockey League for the last couple months. So yeah, if I would bet right now that St. Louis probably gets that 7th spot. And listen, it's hard not to start thinking about potential playoff matchups right now, even though there's lots of work left to be done for the Jets. If they can lock down one and St. Louis takes the first wild card, we get Jets Wild in the first round of the playoffs. And listen, I know there's a lot of people that have said, I'm not going to the States for a while based on everything going on. There's a few things that could change that. And a first round series between the Jets and the Wild, I think, would be one of those. I have a feeling you would see quite a few fans saying, let's throw on the whites and head down to the Twin Cities and get into enemy territory for some first round playoff action. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was a bunch of Wild fans that did whatever they could to get their hands on tickets here for the game. So, I mean, it's pretty juicy. Now we're going to get into yesterday's game as well against Vancouver. Haven't talked a lot about that, just kind of starting off the weekend, but another great performance by the team, by Hellebuck, a little bit of a quieter game that got in, with the afternoon game, and a little bit of nerves too. Like, oh man, I hope this isn't the Buffalo game all over again. It wasn't. And we had one of the candidates for goal of the year by Cole Perfetti yesterday. An absolutely incredible incredible goal in the third period to give the Jets the cushion that they needed to salt the game away. But when Mike comes on, Reem, we're going to get the latest on the goaltending. Now, Eric Comrie is due to be a new dad any minute, apparently. And I'm not sure whether we have an update today from the team. We'll ask Mike on that because it is a travel day. But I do wonder whether Eric Comrie is going to be going with the club, whether it may be Chris Driedger, who, of course, was just acquired. Now, he's technically still with the Manitoba Moose, so I guess all of that is up in the air. I think it's safe to assume that we're probably going to get Helly for the next couple of games, and then we'll get the backup playing on Saturday. Now, who that will be, I guess we'll find out. We can tell you, I'm just checking right now, that Driedger has been called up. So that is some insurance for Eric Comrie if he has to leave the team or be there with his wife when they're giving birth. Here it is. It's just come in the last hour. Jared Anderson-Dolan also recalled from the Manitoba Moose. And I guess with Rasmus Kupari nicked up, with Gabriel Velarde on the mend, they needed to have an extra forward. So Jared Anderson-Dolan is going to be that guy. And Chris Driedger as well. Speaking of Driedger, Remo, before we get to these clips, we should show off this mask. The Moose, I guess, tweeted this out earlier today. Now, Chris Driedger is a Winnipeg guy. And man, did he lean into being on his hometown team in this new mask. Again, podcast listeners, you can go and check this out on the Moose socials. You've got the Jets logo on the side. You've got a couple of the old logos at the bottom. You've got the Golden Boy. You've got the Dale Hawerchuk statue. And, of course, his number 60. You click onto the next one there, Reem. Now, on this side, you've got Louis Riel, Chief Peguis, the legislative buildings. I mean, some more iconic Manitoba scenes. The next one is another, just a bit better of a shot. But on the back, how about this? The Fort Garry North Flyers, the Twins, the Fort Garry Twins, who he played for. And I'm not sure. That looks like the Manchester Monarchs logo at the bottom, Remo. Is that a Winnipeg team as well that I'm missing out? Or is that just some of his...
that's Winnipeg Monarchs, MJ, I guess, is that their old logo? I remember they had
the Monarchs logo. Okay.
Yeah. I remember they had a different logo when I was growing up. But
yeah, me too. It was an M, and then they changed to Mavericks, and then it went back to Monarchs.
Okay.
But
they have gone back to that according to the Winnipeg AAA .com website. So it does remind me of the Manchester Monarchs. It kind of looks like Bailey, the mascot for the LA
Bailey,
Kings.
the Kings mascot?
The Kings mascot. But this is a gorgeous mask with so many tributes to Winnipeg, and the Moose put that out there. I'm like, interesting that they tweeted out this mask today for Chris Driedger when it's a Winnipeg Jets mask tweeted by the Manitoba Moose, and Eric Comrie's status up in the air. But shortly after they tweeted this out, yes, they announced that Driedger called up with Jared Anderson-Dolan as well, needing some healthy bodies, as Velarde out, Rasmus Kupari not available as well. But beautiful mask, and I'm wondering, how long this is going to last. We don't really know. The Jets are off today, traveling to Los Angeles. But just this is a fantastic mask.
Jay Miller wondering, are there potholes too on the mask? I don't think they put any potholes on it. But hopefully Driedger, if he does get into the net at some point on this, can be somewhat of a pothole or an obstacle for the Jets opposition. We're going to dive into yesterday's game, though, in just a minute. Mike McIntyre is going to join us in about 15 or 20 or so. But here, let me give a quick shout out to our friends over at Rolly's Transfer. Spring is not just a rumor, people. It is coming a little slower than maybe we would have liked. But very short order. It's going to be nice outside. We're going to be packing the arena for the playoffs. And many of you are going to be getting your plans settled for spring and summer moves. Listen, if you have a move planned for you and your family, Hit up our friends at Rolly's. 60 years, family owned and operated here in Winnipeg, and the most trusted name in the moving business. They can take care of everything for you with the white glove treatment that they are famous for. What you're going to want to do is check out their website at rollys.com, top right corner, and click on request an estimate, and put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies, and let them know when and where you're planning on moving, what needs to be moved, and they'll turn around with a great quote and get you locked in for that white glove treatment and service that Rolly's has been famous for now into their 7th decade. For all your moving needs, make it Rolly's. Find out more, request an estimate today over at rollys.com. Shout out to our friends at St. Vital Dental Center as well, Dr. Terry. It was funny. Joey Panks was one of the crew that was with us in the WST section. And he mentioned that his family has been going to St. Vital Dental for over 3 generations. And one of the oldest customers. But again, they've been around for a long time. Now, Dr. Terry and his gang have a beautiful new location at 167 St. Anne's with free parking in the background. And much like people like Joey have been going there his entire life, if you're looking for a great spot for your family to take for all your dental care, you could do a lot worse than St. Vital Dental, with an incredible staff and amazing dentists and good vibes and good smiles everywhere around. You need a spring cleaning on your teeth or more? Contact St. Vital Dental. You can get them online at stvitaldental.ca, 167 St. Anne's, with convenient free parking right behind the building. I should say hi to our friends Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery as well. As we get through this final little blast of winter, everyone knows if you need car or truck batteries, you'll get the best price in town at Manitoba Battery, and you'll be shopping local. But now we can start thinking about getting those boats in the water. It'll be a little bit, getting the ATVs going, the dirt bikes, everything that you need for spring and summer batteries to get ready to be good to go the second you're able to is waiting for you at Manitoba Battery, your local option with the best battery prices in town, beating the pants off the big box stores, and the best service as well. I mean, you can pop by and see them on Logan Avenue or Dovercourt Drive, but you can also just give them a call or order online at manitobabattery.com, and they'll deliver your batteries for free anywhere inside the city of Winnipeg with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. Order online today over at manitobabattery.com. And just before we get to a little bit of Scott Arniel, big cheers to Canadian Club, Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey. If you're popping by your local Manitoba liquor marts these days, make sure you keep it Canadian. And if you're thinking Canadian whiskey, make it the iconic, original Canadian Club since 1848. Check it out along with Canadian Club 100% Rye, Canadian Club Classic. And next time you're at your beer vendor, keep your eyes out for CC and ginger ale, pre-mixed in cocktails in cans, ready to go. And again, we'll be counting down the days till we're back at Princess Auto Stadium enjoying Canadian Club as the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. All right, let's get to yesterday's game, Remo. And, as I mentioned, it was a bit of a slow start. The Jets were fine. Vancouver was fine, I guess. It was kind of low event for the first 15 minutes or so. But, Vancouver was in that game. And the next thing you know, a bit of a miscommunication. I believe it was Suter that got it on a very, very close play at the blue line. Put it back past Connor Hellebuck. And, the Canucks score, and the Jets are unsuccessful with the challenge. Now, credit to the PK for getting them out of that and then turning it around. I thought the Kyle Connor goal was huge. And listen, Demko probably did not like letting that one in. Brilliant quick release, though, from Kyle Connor to catch him off guard, to tie the game up. And once they had that goal and tied it up, they really seemed to control the game and certainly were the better team yesterday. But it was a little nervous times, being down 1-0 heading into the second period, considering Sunday afternoon a week ago where they certainly deserved to beat the Buffalo Sabres but weren't able to do it.
Yeah, I think you had a lot of flashbacks, sold-out crowd on a Sunday in a game where you're playing pretty well, but the goals aren't coming in, and Vancouver gets on the board. You have the offside challenge, which I think was was pretty close. I don't think they had a clear angle, clear enough to overturn, and Vancouver's up, up 1-0. But hey, the Jets do what they've been doing all year, sticking to their game, and eventually they get rewarded. And how about Mason Appleton this week with 2 very big goals? He had the one on Tuesday against Washington, a snipe. This one, more of a grinder type of goal, battling hard to the front of the net and putting one in past Thatcher Demko. I think you could take your breath, exhale a little bit, but then it was Cole Perfetti who brought everyone out of their seat. And we've been talking about Cole Perfetti for weeks, saying Cole Perfetti has arrived. Cole Perfetti has broken out. Cole Perfetti, has erased last year. Now it's like, is Cole Perfetti a superstar with a goal like that? I mean, pretty incredible play. Turnstiling, former Winnipeg Jet defenseman Derek Forbort.
Poor Derek Forbort.
Yeah, that's posterized.
100%.
And bringing everyone in. The move was amazing, but how about the snipe, falling forward and shooting it over short side on Demko. Perfetti, last year, the second half really fizzled out, but since January 24 against Utah, he's really come out here. I think he's close to a point per game, just loading it up here. But it's been an incredible stretch here, and he's a guy, lately that they've relied on for offenses. The power play hasn't had the success that they had earlier on in the season, and Cole Perfetti has really stepped up his game the last couple weeks here.
Listen, he abused Derek Forbort last night. I mean, as I tweeted last night, that move was so filthy, it should have been flagged for adult content online. It was just a beautiful goal, one of the goals of the year for a team that scored some beauties so far this season. And, there's been so much talk about the way that the lines have been configured without Gabe Vilardi. And listen, Scott Arniel's just looking better and better with these decisions being made. The first line is being effective with AI, scored 2 big goals on Friday night. The Ehlers, Lowry, Appleton line has been dangerous, have been owning their opposition. Connor's got a good piece over at IC today on just how well the advanced metrics like what Ehlers, Lowry, and Appleton have been doing. And, of course, Mason Appleton, with 2 huge goals this week. And the one yesterday, and we'll hear this from the coach, that's a playoff goal. And that's what that line is going to have to do. Ehlers finding a way to create space, get the puck to the net, and then having a guy like Appleton there, taking the abuse and putting the puck in the back of the net. And then the third line. And listen, that would be great if that was working, but you want, and I've said this last week, Remo, and it's more true today than it was going into the weekend. Cole Perfetti is showing that he is able to be the offensive driver of a line right now. And, sure, they might be getting a few more advantageous matchups, which is great. They're taking advantage of it. And Nino looks like he's got a lot more juice in his game lately. Vlad, of course, is doing Vlad things, but Cole Perfetti right now, continues to be dangerous, whether he's playing with Nikolai Ehlers or not. And the little bit of individual greatness yesterday is something that's going to be on those highlight reels for a long time.
Yeah, you mentioned Nino having a lot of extra juice. It was having all his buddies in. Wearing the Swiss Nino jerseys all week at Canada Life Centers. So, you have 3 pretty balanced lines. Scott Arniel saying, "Hey, let's have a guy who goes to the net on each line, whether it's Iafallo, line 1. He had the 2 goals on Friday. Appleton on line 2. We saw that in action yesterday. And Perfetti on line 3. And, Perfetti, again, showing his offensive skill and really having a breakout season. And, we saw he had a great game on Tuesday against Washington. And, again, last night against Vancouver. And the Jets getting revenge for the poor performance they had it was just a week ago where they went into Vancouver. They were at the end of a long road trip and, had not their best performance. And it was Vancouver who was at the end of a long one last night or yesterday afternoon. And the Jets were able to come out on top and get the 2 points, which are so crucial to keeping pace with Dallas here.
I was sitting at the game and, talking with people in my section and then after the game. And like this team traded away JT Miller. They got Cheadle or Heedle, however you pronounce his name. He's out. Elias Paterson is out as well. So, I mean, that real strength of Vancouver, those top two centers, not there. The replacement for JT Miller, not there. And I turned to a couple people and I said, how in the world did this lineup score 6 goals in their last game? I mean, full credit to them for how hard they're playing right now and what they were able to do on that road trip to get results. But with the 7-6 loss Friday night in a shootout to Columbus, that kind of felt like it was last rites for the Vancouver Canucks. And I think Cole Perfetti, in some ways, was the undertaker, if you will, and really sort of with that goal closed the casket on the Canucks.
It's WrestleMania season.
It is WrestleMania season. Because I think I guess they've got a 5% chance. I mean, you know, crazy things could happen. They could win out. It's not happening. And the Calgary Flames are also right up against it, although a little bit better of a chance to win after they got a point against the Edmonton Oilers, but they really needed to. But it kind of felt, Remo, like that was it for the Vancouver Canucks this year. And it's next year time for Vancouver. I do have to give Quinn Hughes a lot of credit. I didn't think he was as dominant and effective as he was most nights yesterday, and I think maybe we got to give some credit to the Jets and the way that they played and the way they shut them down. But he basically has been a one-man show for the last couple weeks, and it's kind of funny and amazing that they were even in the position they were coming into Winnipeg yesterday. But as they say, I think the casket was closed by Cole Perfetti on that with that goal on Derek Forbort and then Thatcher Demko.
Yeah, just look at the money puck odds, which I do like to keep tabs on. 9.7% for Vancouver and Calgary 15.5. We're looking at percent to finish first. The Jets sitting at 82.4 and Dallas is 17. That's kind of what it's been. So it's going to change, you know, based on who wins, who loses. How about St. Louis, though? This is what I was looking at. St. Louis is basically 50-50, whether they're wild card 1 or wild card 2. Point flip there. And
that sounds about right. We'll go through the schedule for St. Louis and Minnesota. I've been looking at that a little later on. Of course, St. Louis is the Jets' next home game, a week from today, and that's an Amazon game. But I would suggest that you get your seats for that one. That could be Hellebuck versus Binnington, a potential playoff preview, and it'll certainly be a big game for Winnipeg as they look to lock down and get first place in the West and in the Central and potentially first place overall in the National Hockey League. But listen, Mike is coming up in a few minutes. Let's get a little bit of the coach before we welcome in Mike McIntyre. Arnie talked about, listen, the defensive play was a hell of a lot better yesterday than it was when they gave up 6 last week on the road. Here's what Arnie had to say about the improved defensive play in yesterday's tilt as opposed to the most recent meeting between the two teams.
I liked the start of our game until after our power play was over, and then the last 12 minutes of the first wasn't real good, but thought we took the game back over in the second and the third. Played a lot faster, closed a lot quicker, did a lot more of what we needed to do, and it was a really good third for sure.
Right. One thing, is obviously when you're talking about a weekend with 2 wins, you only give up 1 goal, you score 7. Not a lot to pick on. I will say this coming out, and Arniel sort of mentioned it. I don't know what is up with the 5-on-3 power plays for the Jets, but the last maybe 4 times they've had a 5-on-3, it's looked less effective than their 5-on-4 power play, and it's kind of sucks some momentum out of the game. And Arniel sort of mentioned that after that power play happened, didn't really like the rest of the first period last night for the Jets.
Yeah, this power play, it's been a bit of a funk here. Thankfully, Connor Hellebuck's, got a 1.00 GAA in this 3-game win streak. So, you only need to score 2 if you want to win those games. But I don't know. I thought the power play, has had some nice looks. They haven't been able to score, but this has been going on for a bit too long here. And
No longer number one in the league.
Yeah, 5-on-3. You got to capitalize, and they haven't been. Hopefully, it's it's just a funk here, but it's going the 5-on-3. You got to take advantage of it, especially in the playoffs.
It's like the hammer in TGL, or like doubling down in blackjack. If you score, you feel great, and you maybe have an extra power play. If you don't, it really seems to suck some of the momentum of the attack. So anyways, hopefully they can learn from that, get a few more pucks in. It just seems like they're waiting for that perfect play that's not necessarily always there, even on a 5-on-3. Now the Canucks scored, and there was an offside challenge, and Matt Prefontaine, Eric Connery called him the Connor McDavid of video coaches. He hasn't taken too many L's. This was a close one, though, and here's what Scott Arniel had to say about the offside challenge.
It's tricky because when it gets to that point, the camera, the video that we have, it looks offside. But when you touch the next frame or go back one frame forward, it's amazing how close it is. And obviously, once they started to look at it that long, then we figured that it wasn't going to be a goal. But I mean, it was going to be a goal. But it really, honestly, we thought 100%, that it was offside. But it just comes down. That one honestly was sort of you've seen them lots where sort of the frame of it, and then maybe is this because there was a blade in the air, and was it how far was it? Was it all the way over? Was the puck all the way over? So it was tight. We would have made that call. I would have made that call again.
All right, there's just a little bit of intel from the head coach on the decision to challenge Vancouver's first goal. And then, while we're talking about the penalty or the power play, coming off of it a little bit and having a little struggles at 5-on-3, and now only second overall and actually under 30% for the first time in forever. The PK stepped up in a big way when they needed it yesterday, and we'll get into that and more special teams as well. But listen, before we bring in Mike, I know we're going to be talking about the Perfetti line and the Lowry line. Here's what Arnie had to say about his new look middle six.
The big thing we talked about with Lau's line is, with him and Apple and Ehlers, is that they are still facing the other teams, top line. They saw an awful lot of Suter tonight. I thought Apple and those guys, and Lau, and I thought they were real good in the sense of how physical they were. I thought Lau was real good. He's getting so many chances around that net front. I know he hasn't scored in a while, but he's doing all the right things. And Flag gives him some speed on there. But with Vladdy's line, like I mentioned you guys last week, there it gives there's two real skill with. Again, it's two skilled guys, and no disrespect to Nino's skill, but it's also another big body that goes to hard places, and I think that we're kind of getting that out of guys again. That's part of the identity of Nino when he plays that way. He's real effective.
All right, so there's the coach. We'll have a little bit more from Arnie, and we will have Cole Perfetti. Got to hear what he had to say about what he did yesterday to Derek Forbort and the Vancouver Canucks. But Mike McIntyre's teed up for us. He's going to join us in just a second. Huge thanks to Princess Auto for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Synonymous with Winnipeg. They are Princess Auto, of course, founded here in the Peg, headquartered here in Winnipeg, and now coast to coast, serving Canadians, but with 3 locations in Manitoba, Panet Road and Portage Avenue West in the city, and of course out in Brandon as well. Princess Auto is where you will find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is waiting for you at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them in store today, or shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com, and look forward to seeing you all at Princess Auto Stadium this summer to cheer on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Huge thanks to Wallace & Wallace. Speaking of great Canadian company or Winnipeg companies, they've been doing it since 1946 as the leaders in fencing and overhead doors. If you need a new fence, they've got you covered with vinyl, ornamental, chain link, welded wire, wood fences. And if you need a new garage door, they've got the best selection in town to perfectly match your home and add value to it as well. Give Wallace & Wallace a call, 452-2700. Their team will be happy to come down and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them online at wallacefences.com or check them out at their showroom in person, Lawson Crescent, just off of Kenaston. And of course, spring and summer are just around the corner, and that means we're going to be getting into grad season. We're going to be into wedding season. Fellas, if you need to up your menswear game, get on down to F Apparel now for the best in custom men's suits starting at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. Great grad promo right now. You get a suit for a 2025 Manitoba grad, receive a free shirt and tie. And of course, if you are in a wedding or a wedding party, talk to the fellas at F about a great discount when the fellas get their suits at F for the big day. F Apparel, 190 Smith Street. Check them out online or make an appointment to come in for a fitting at F. That's EPHapparel.com. All right, let's get Mike in here and get things going. Mike, what a weekend for the Jets. How was yours?
It was a great weekend. Of course, we sprinkled in some Jets action. We got to celebrate Kenny's 50th birthday. Just to show how many people were there, Huss. You and I were both in the same room. We didn't even really cross paths that night. There was just so many folks there.
I know. I knew we'd be getting our extended chat today. So
yes,
no, but
exactly.
I was not avoiding you at all, Mike. I mean, it was
nor was I.
It was just one of those situations where we did have it was a real who's who. I mean, it just goes to show Ken's got a lot of friends.
He's a mover and a shaker.
Well, it was great to see a bunch of folks from the Winnipeg media that we don't really not see on a daily basis. But yeah, it's great time. Shout out to Nick and the gang at Nicolinos for taking care of everybody very well. Great spot for events like that. And listen, and you know what? A lot of people maybe didn't take it as deep as they would have normally done because, of course, there was an afternoon game the next day on Sunday at 2.
Nobody wanted to be playing hurt on Sunday, and I'll give the man of the hour credit. Kenny, he showed up in fine. He had his A game yesterday. He was dialed in, just like Connor Hellebuck and the rest of the Jets teammates. Impressive performance from Weber, coming in off a late night game. It was a tough schedule.
Yeah, quick turnaround.
Maybe a scheduled loss, in fact, but Kenny turned it into a win. But yeah, it was a great day at the rink. Like Huss, you're at all the games. You can just feel the momentum really building, just in the rink. Like it's
absolutely,
it's feeling like old times in there, with the chants and the Go Jets Go stuff, even before the anthems, which kind of disappeared for a while, but you're now seeing it like. You can tell folks are dialed in, and I mean, 5 straight sellouts. There was a time when we expected that. Those times are long gone, and I don't think it can be understated how much the community is clearly responding to what the Jets are doing on the ice, and the Jets are certainly rewarding their fans with, stellar home ice performances. I asked Scott Arniel about it after the game yesterday, and he said, we've got to earn it. We know we have to earn it. And he feels they have earned it. And they're giving fans their money's worth. And it's hard to argue when you look at the results.
Well, it's funny that we're going to go there because we'll kind of dive into where the team is at and the playoff race and everything coming up. But you bring that up. And, I've spent some time thinking about this and talking about it. We knew that this team was in they had a lot of work to do. Off the ice when it came to getting people back in the building and engaging fans that for whatever reason had sort of been lost. And listen, credit to them. They added the staff. They've done what it needed to do. They've done some great marketing initiatives this year with things like the Heritage Homestand, where they had some unique packages to provide some more value to fans and maybe add in some things. And it's resulted in people coming out to the games. I'm not sure we've talked enough about just the change in personality of the Winnipeg Jets. I don't want to say, listen, I don't want to go too much back into where things were, but I will tell you that since the day Rick Bowness walked into to that dressing room for the first time and did what he did and spent those 2 years, along with Scott Arniel, in the mix of changing the culture, the guys that they have here, the guys that they've brought in, players that maybe didn't feel as comfortable being that way before with other people in the room are now. And I have to say, I think this team is the most likable version of the Winnipeg Jets we have seen since the 2011. And to be perfectly honest, I think when you really dig in, the 2011 team would have been loved no matter what.
Yeah.
It's an incredible collection of guys that are getting it done on the ice and doing things we've never seen a Jets team do before. But the way they do it, the connection that they seem to have with the fans, and what they say about it is it's light years from where it was before. And I think it was an important 180 that the organization, the team had to make. And it seems like it's kind of coming together in success of all stripes right now for Winnipeg.
You're bang on, and I'll use Saturday's practice as just the most recent template. I was down at Hockey for All Center on Saturday, and there was an event going on there at Hockey for All. I'm not sure what it was exactly, but the building, like there was a million people there. But there was like a rock star kind of vibe around the Jets, and when they walked from one rink to the other, I think Jets social media tweeted some pictures. There's actually a very funny one of Mitch Clinton giving high fives to fans. And
oh my God, that was hilarious.
Well, I was actually a few steps behind Mitch. I got the same treatment. I high-fived like 25 people because all these kids had their hands out. They had no idea who I was. It was pretty clear I wasn't a hockey player, but I'm between the ropes. So yeah, it was hilarious, and a bunch of Jets players, like, they signed autographs, and there's Mitch. Yeah, he loved his. You could just see his head getting bigger. But yeah, I was right behind her, a few steps behind Mitch. It was funny, but just the feeling inside the Jets room. So for folks who don't know, the Jets, a bunch of the Jets who have kids, they had their kids down at the rink with them that day. And after the formal practice was over, like, a bunch of their kids put on skates, and Jets players went out on the ice after and had a little twirl with them. Just the feeling inside the room with the amount of goodwill and joking that was going on. You had, like, I asked Dylan DeMello if they had enough kids for a father-son game yet, father-son and daughter game. He said once Luke Schen's 3 kids arrive, they will. And then I said, what's the scouting report? Are they like Dad? Do you have to keep your head up when they're on the ice? And DeMello's and Schen's sitting there, but DeMello's joking. Yeah, no easy ice against the Schen kids. You had Nino Niederreiter talking about his Swiss buddies who came 7,000 kilometers. And I ended up catching up with them during the first intermission yesterday, and they were just hilarious. And like they were rock stars in the crowd, fans coming over for selfies. And
that bit Friday, Mike, at Friday, if you weren't at the game, folks. So in the, I don't know, it was like the second period or whatever, the Jets are up. Maybe it was the third. And they showed them on the crowd. There was actually 2 groups of Swiss, because they had a bunch of people, like, these are Nino's buddies. They'd been there for the whole week. Yeah. Then there was another Swiss group that came that all had the Jets Niederreiter jerseys. So everyone was giving them a hard time, but they focus in on these guys. I guess they're Nino's buddies. And then, credit to the Jets production staff, they went straight to a shot of Niederreiter on the bench. It was just laughing and shaking his head, going, oh my God, these guys are having too much fun.
So I asked Nino on Saturday about his reaction, and he basically said, I was thinking, like, those idiots are at it again. And then he said to me, I mentioned how they were dancing and stuff, and he's like, they were probably pickled. That's the exact quote from Nino Niederreiter. They were probably pickled. But, just they emulate, like, that all emulates the personality of these Jets, the likability. Yesterday, Cole Perfetti scores that goal, the big celebration. You've got Mason Appleton joking after, like, the first thing we all looked for is whether he's smiling. So just the amount of back and forth banter, you're right. It's a very likable group combined with it being a very talented group. And that's a winning recipe for the Jets. I still had some people, like, tweeting at me yesterday, oh, thank goodness for corporate support. They wouldn't be where they are. And I had to remind people online yesterday, the Jets have the lowest corporate support. What we're seeing here is largely Joe and Jane fan And, the Jets are certainly working to get more corporate support, but they have the lowest in the NHL. And so you're seeing a very natural reaction. And I think it's why the energy has been so great inside the building. These are not just suits filling the seats like they do in Toronto. These are fans who are paying good money, but they're getting rewarded for it by a team that I think really appreciates the support they're getting. And, it's a mutual kind of admiration society, if you will, between the fans and the Jets. And the timing couldn't have been better. As you pointed out, Huss, the Jets really needed this. And I do think, funny that you mentioned Rick Bowness. He was in the building on Friday and, he was back in town for a quick visit. And he's gone, but definitely not forgotten. And, everybody in the organization, I think, certainly values what Rick did in his 2 years in terms of changing the culture. And a lot of what you see in terms of defensive structure and Scott Arniel has done a tremendous job kind of carrying or picking up where Rick Bowness left off. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun to see, and certainly a lot of excitement now with under 3 weeks till the playoffs get underway, and just what this city's going to be like. Once the whiteout gets underway, it should be electric.
Well, and there's still a lot to be determined as to who the Jets could play. They could play St. Louis, they could play Minnesota, they could play the Colorado Avalanche. I mean, everything is on the table right now. And we were just going through the standings. And I'm like, look at that. They're 3 points clear of the Washington Capitals for the best record in hockey and what would be the President's Trophy, which would be nice. It would be a nice little cherry on top of a pretty delicious Sunday of the regular season before you get to playoffs.
Yeah.
But the Dallas Stars just start losing right now. And, credit to the Jets for taking care of their business. But there's absolutely no time to get complacent, to relax, even for a shift, never mind a period or a game, because Dallas is right there. And listen, I'll say this. I thought that the disappointment of last Sunday that had a lot of people in our conversation last week, hey, they could be 2 points ahead last week. Right. You can't take anything for granted with the Dallas Stars, and nothing has been granted to them. But the Jets did their part with 3 great wins, once again led by their horse in the net, Connor Hellebuck, who was the 3rd star of the week, finished a weekend with 2 big wins, 0.5 goals against average, is continuing to do what he's doing. But to the Jets, to their credit, they really are focusing on the next shift, the next game, as cliche as it sounds. And it's working, because if they weren't doing it, we could be talking about the Avalanche as a more realistic possibility, at least in where we sit today.
Yeah, it's funny. A little while ago, I had placed holds on hotels in 5 cities for the playoffs. And I just canceled 2 of the 5. So I'm now down to the 3 you mentioned, Denver, St. Louis, and St. Paul or Minneapolis. I had Vancouver and Calgary as well. I don't think either. I mean, I don't think either of those teams is catching St. Louis. I suppose Minnesota, if they keep kind of plummeting and one of Vancouver or Calgary were to get hot, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility. But yeah, I think we're down to probably 3 likely opponents for the Jets. And I think when you look at Colorado, St. Louis, Minnesota, I'm sure 99% of fans, if you did a poll, would probably pick Minnesota as the preferred opponent. For all the people saying you don't want to play Colorado, well, St. Louis just went into Colorado on Saturday and held them to 1 goal in their own building. I saw a stat that Colorado's like the best rush team in the league, and the Blues held them to 4 rush chances the entire game, which is an insanely low number. The Blues are absolutely dialed in right now. Oh, and they don't have Colton Parayko, their best defenseman, who could be back for the playoffs as well. So, yeah, lots to be sorted out, but you're right. Credit to the Jets. They are not getting, I guess, distracted by what the Stars are doing. If anything, it seems like that's continuing to push them even more, us. And it would be something, wouldn't it, if when the regular season ends in 2.5 weeks from now, I'm starting to wonder if this might not be 2018 all over again, where number 1 and 2 in the NHL That year it was Nashville 1, Winnipeg 2. It's not out of the possibility that Dallas actually overtakes Washington. And when the season ends, the two best teams in the regular season reside in the Central Division. Now, if you're the Jets, you're certainly hoping that you're the number one. And if Dallas is number two, so be it. They can go take care of Colorado, or Colorado can take care of them, and you worry about that if you get to the second round. But yeah, it's remarkable. And this Central Division, we talk about how tough it is, but when you factor in Colorado and St. Louis now, and Winnipeg and Dallas and Minnesota, they've still got 87 points. I know they haven't been playing well. What's it, like 5 of the top 12
I'm
teams?
just counting it right now. It's 5 of the top 13 teams.
That's insane.
In the National Hockey League are all in the Central Division. Right. Minnesota right now is 12th. St. Louis is 13th in the league. We had some fun. I think it was on Friday, and it's even more skewed today. If the NHL was doing a 1 versus 16, you would have Winnipeg would be, well, first of all, it would be great news for teams like Vancouver and Calgary.
Sure.
Because they'd be in. I mean, teams like Montreal, the Rangers, Columbus, all these teams for the 8th spot, they're hovering around 19th, 20th overall.
Turtle Derby, yeah.
No consolation to Flames or Canucks fans right now, but they maybe do deserve a better fate. But it certainly seems like there's a real strength in the West, and specifically in the Central Division, which is a reason why I think St. Louis and Minnesota are both going to be playing their asses off to get that first wild card spot.
Yes,
now,
for sure.
And now even, we can say, oh, no one wants to play the Jets. I mean, I think everyone knows the Jets are going to be a tough out. They've got world-class goaltending. But the fact of the matter is, you would far rather go into a pool with Vegas, Edmonton, and LA as opposed to Winnipeg, Dallas, and Colorado. So that race in itself is going to be really, really interesting. And, unfortunately for the Jets, it's not like, if they move one position back, they get the other wild card team. They get the Avs. And listen, I know your point. Hey, watch out for St. Louis. I don't care what St. Louis is doing right now. I would rather play the St. Louis Blues than I would the Colorado Avalanche. And I think it's incumbent on the Jets to take care of business, because that first round series between Dallas and Colorado will certainly take a pound of flesh out of whoever ends up graduating out of it. And listen, the Jets, no matter what, if you're in the Stanley Cup playoffs, you're playing a worthy, very quality opponent. And that is going to be the case no matter how the chips fall down. I'll still take the wild card route and hopefully set up Dallas, Colorado in the first round.
So as we sit here today, Huss, I believe the magic number in terms of points is 13 for the Jets. That's 13 points either gained by Winnipeg and or lost by Dallas. Now, given what Dallas is doing, how many of those 13 points can you really count on the Stars losing? Maybe 2, because if you're optimistic, you're hoping that the Jets beat them when they play that one head-to-head game next Thursday, a week from Thursday. But really, if you're the Jets, you might have to go get those 13 points on your own, like all of them, because you can't necessarily count on the Stars helping you out or their opponents helping you out. So if you're talking 13 points, the Jets have 8 games left. That's like 6-1-1. Now, again, if Dallas drops a game, 6-1-1 becomes 5-2-1. If they drop another game, then it's 4-3-1. So, Dallas, they still have 9 games left, and I know their schedule is pillowy soft, other than the game against Winnipeg, and they do have one against Minnesota. And as you mentioned, Minnesota should be desperate, but we just saw yesterday, if you don't have the depth, you can be as desperate as you want. The Canucks were desperate yesterday. They just didn't have the horses. And Minnesota right now is quite depleted by injuries and not sure what that's going to look like here over the next couple of weeks. So, yeah, I mean, you're hoping, if you're the Jets, you'd love for Seattle to do you a favor tonight. They didn't do them a favor on Saturday night. Bizarre scheduling that the Stars play 2 straight games in Seattle on not on back-to-back either. So maybe Adam Lowry's request of his dad, Dave, who's an assistant with the Kraken, he joked on Saturday that he did text him and ask for a little help. Dave said we'll try it. We'll do our best. Well, they didn't do very much on Saturday, so they get another crack at them tonight. And certainly, if you're the Jets, you'd love to see Dallas drop that. Then it's down to 11. Because let's face it, Huss, the Jets do not have an easy schedule here over the next few games. Certainly not tomorrow, where they're playing the best home team in the league, who just put an 8 spot up last night. Granted, it was against San Jose. The Jets have already lost once in LA this year, and then they got to go into their personal nemesis, Vegas, who's beat them, 8 straight times. And I guess if you're the optimist, you'd say, well, the Jets are due. But the Jets just do not have a good record against the Vegas Golden Knights. So, and then you get Utah, and then back for that one against St. Louis, who are likely going to be coming in scorching hot. And the Jets will be coming off a long West Coast trip. And then you get Dallas. So it's a tough grind here for the Jets. But they're going to stick to their system, the way they've been playing. And as they've shown this week, really doesn't matter who the opponent is. It could be the best team in the league in Washington, desperate teams like New Jersey and Vancouver, and they just keep taking care of their own business, which they have to because Dallas is doing the same thing.
You would love, from a Jets perspective, you would love that game in Dallas on April 10th to not be as important as it looks like it probably will be.
Yeah.
But as you point out, Mike, I mean, the meat of the Jets schedule is in advance of that game. And, with Dallas not really having, a lot of tough opponents, you have to assume that they're going to probably take care of their business on most nights. Maybe you'll get them to drop a point or two somewhere. But it is going to be incumbent. And these are big, big games on the road coming up this week if the Jets want to continue to be in that position, as opposed to being in a game where, that really will determine if the final few games of the season are going to be part of a race for first, or whether the Jets are going to give themselves a bit of a cushion to play a couple guys, give some guys some rest. I mean, I'm sure they would love to do that if possible. But there's certainly no guarantees on it because of the way Dallas is playing. But again, we'd be having a very different conversation if the Jets didn't take care of their own business over the course of this past week at home.
No, that's certainly true. And, these next 5 games leading into the Dallas game, the Jets will play 4 playoff teams of the 5, right? LA, Vegas, St. Louis, Dallas. 2 of their last 3 against non-playoff teams, Chicago and Anaheim. But again, if you're the Jets, you'd like those last 2 or 3 games to be moot because maybe you've sewn up the division. You could then rest some guys. You could manage Connor Hellebuck's workload a little different. I'm just curious, and I know Eric Comrie's wife being in labor has kind of maybe thrown a bit of a curveball here to the Jets. Like, I'm curious what the goaltending plan was originally. I honestly thought Eric Comrie probably was going to get yesterday's game. But I think with the uncertainty, he was dressed for the game, but his wife has gone into labor. We knew that on Saturday. And so that probably wasn't a good time to put him in the net. Now, of course, Eric Comrie's not even on the road trip to start. He's stayed behind in Winnipeg. They're not starting Chris Driedger tomorrow night in LA. Pretty sure about that, Huss. So, Connor Hellebuck will play. And so when does Eric Comrie get in? Is it maybe Utah on Saturday? I guess, potentially. But again, if you're the Jets and you need to just keep winning, do you kind of throw whatever goaltending plan you had out the window for the time being and just keep riding Connor Hellebuck because you want to get these wins now? And you'll worry about what that means. If you could get it sewn up with a couple of games left, then you can work some rest in. Like, I don't know, Scott Arniel wouldn't really reveal much about his goaltending plans or how this playoff chase is affecting them. But it's an interesting situation for sure. And, if you're the Jets, like you said, Huss, you just have to keep doing what you're doing. Don't worry about the stars. I mean, at this point, you just have to expect that Dallas is going to keep winning because they kind of are. So you just have to treat it as if you have to do the same.
I'm with you. I mean, we talked a lot about, this Hellebuck schedule and where they were going to be at. I mean, pretty hard not to throw him back in after what happened last Sunday and after how good he looked against the Devils on Friday night. And I expect him to play the next 2 games. I do. And I think probably they'll go with the backup, whether it's Comrie or whether it's Chris Driedger in that Utah game. And then we're going to see Hellebuck Binnington go head-to-head a week today here in Winnipeg, and we'll see Connor Hellebuck go against Jake Ottinger on the 10th against the Dallas Stars. And then, depending on their situation, you'll look at the remainder of those 4 games, do the math, figure out where you're at, and hopefully they'll be able to give Eric Comrie another couple starts. The funny thing is, if Hellebuck gets 6 starts of the final 8 games and wins them,
history,
he'll set an all-time record for the most wins in a season ever by a goaltender. And I mean, he's been in rarefied air all season long, but the fact that we can even have this conversation with 8 games remaining saying this is still on the table is just another feather in the cap of a guy that's doing things that we have never seen done before.
Did you see that stat, Huss? And maybe Remis has the clip. I think it was Sportsnet Stats put it out the other day that only 2 goalies in history have ever led the NHL in wins, shutouts, goals against, and save percentage, and all of which Connor Hellebuck. The only one he doesn't have a really big lead in is shutouts. He's 1 ahead of Vasilevsky with an NHL leading 7. And it was Jacques Plante. And was it Bernie Parent? So, like, basically 2 legends of the game. Like, when you talk NHL goalies, those are 2 of the first names that come up. So Connor Hellebuck is on the cusp of becoming the 3rd ever. That's insane. And the first in, 52 years since Bernie Parent would have done it.
Yeah.
Absolutely bananas. And consider this my plea to my fellow PHWA voters. I will have a vote. I think we get our ballots next week, I believe. Connor Hellebuck, I don't think I'm spoiling anything by saying he'd be number 1 on my ballot for the Hart. There's some trophies we don't vote on. We don't vote on the Vezina. That's the NHL general managers that do that. We do get a Hart vote. He'll be on my ballot for sure. And how could he, you hear the MVP chants at the rink. How can he not be? Again, these are historic numbers he's putting up. A season unlike very few we've ever seen by a goaltender on what is the NHL's best team. Yes, the Jets have a lot of other really good things going for them, but it all starts with Connor Hellebuck, and he's just in his own world right now. It's incredible.
Well, listen, for a couple of reasons. We have been very emotionally invested in this. Well, not just emotionally invested, but some would say financially invested. Because in November on the Lock Shop in here, I'm like, we need to start talking about Hellebuck for the Hart Trophy.
Right.
And got him posted. I think at that point we got him at 20-1. So, that number has obviously gone down, but I've been paying close attention to where the odds have been over the last month. And say 3 weeks ago, Draisaitl was the favorite to win it at about -150. And Hellebuck was in and around 3-1. That came down to 2-1. And Draisaitl was a bit bigger of a favorite. And Nate McKinnon was at like +850.
Right.
Well, when Draisaitl got hurt, all of last week, it flipped. And Hellebuck was the favorite. Was -175, then it was -150, and the second place guy in the odds as low as +250 was McKinnon, and Draisaitl was sitting there at 4-1. Well, he comes back for 1 game, scores to tie the game, scores in OT, and it's like no one paid attention to the fact that the guy that was the favorite just went out, won 2 more games, gave up 1 goal on the weekend, and right now over at Coolbet, it's a dead heat.
Oh,
it's -105 for Draisaitl. It's -105 for Hellebuck. Nate McKinnon's 9-1. To be honest, Mike, I think this is going to come down to this final 8 games of the season. Like, there's always something known as recency bias, I think, when it comes to it. And if you have a great 20-game period, and it's the final 20 games as opposed to the first 20 games, that is going to matter more just psychologically with people. But I really think that if the Jets win the conference, win the division, and if they do that, they're probably winning the President's Trophy.
Right.
That will put Hellebuck over the top. But I actually really do think that there's a lot on the line when it comes to the Hart over the course of these next few games. Because even though I think we should give the guy it right now, based on all those numbers we talked about, there's just such an inherent bias against goaltenders winning the award that you really have to be so far beyond everybody else to get those votes, fairly or unfairly.
Yeah.
Then that's sort of where we're at right now. But he certainly helped his cause, albeit the odds didn't show that with what he did this past week, and of course being the third star of the week.
One thing, though, we won't be hearing, no matter how this race turns out, is the cries of Eastern bias or anti-Canadian bias, because we're talking about two Western Canadian teams, Western Canadian. So it's not like can you imagine, Huss, if it was between Hellebuck and a guy that played for the Bruins or the Rangers, and then you people would be going nuts, right? Because there's this perception that teams out west don't get the same respect as Eastern teams, and there's a lot more voters certainly out east when you look at just the sheer number of teams and the media markets out there. But so you have Draisaitl, and in fact, you could sprinkle McKinnon into that mix as well. 3 teams kind of all in the West, 2 of them being Canadian. May the best man, skater, goaltender win. It does make for certainly quite the race. But I mean, personally, I do think there's one clear front runner here. And, I guess to the Jets and Hellebuck's credit, I don't know that that's consuming a whole lot of their thoughts or worries at this time. It is, you bring up that interesting point about the all-time goalie wins. I wonder if, let's just say hypothetically, best case scenario, the Jets wrap up the division. Let's say they beat Dallas next week and that clinches it. Then you got 3 games left. They're not going to shut Hellebuck down for all of them, but you also would want to work in some rest, but you also want to be cautious of rust. But what happens if he needs 2 wins? But you only wanted to maybe play him 1 game because you want to get it would be an interesting decision. I'd love to be a fly on the wall on how those discussions play out, because Connor Hellebuck wants to play all the time, but the Jets also want to make sure that when they get to the playoffs, he's got some rest as well.
Yeah, and again, the second last game of the year is that game against Edmonton, which could potentially mean nothing other than a showdown between Draisaitl and Hellebuck.
Again, if the Oilers are already locked into a spot and the Jets, both those guys might not even play that game, right? Who knows? Or it could mean everything to both teams. Well, the Oilers might still be fighting for home ice advantage against LA, and
there's a lot that can be determined. I guess the point is that, depending on how this works, you would think that, if it's a meaningful game and it's against Edmonton, Hellebuck's playing. Yeah. But the way things work with the with the game dates, you've got a gap of, I think, 2 days before that game against the Ducks on the Wednesday, and then presumably another 2 to 3 days before you're starting the playoffs. You could see Hellebuck maybe go Chicago, Anaheim, and have the backup go against Edmonton. And then Hellebuck wouldn't be having basically a week off before playing a playoff game. So, I mean, it's really hard to call right now, other than it's a real fun conversation to have about a guy that certainly should be, I think, at the top of that list right now for the Hart Trophy. And, as you and the media talk to him after his shutout on Friday, he's hearing the chants, and he's very modest about it and doesn't say, but he's a very driven guy, and I think would be incredibly proud to be the first ever Hart Trophy winner in Winnipeg Jets history.
By the way, for folks planning possible playoff dates, and I don't have any inside info, but I can say this, your point, Huss, about the Jets finishing their season on that Wednesday. The NHL season itself concludes the next night. The Jets are actually finishing up 1 night earlier than some other teams, including teams that'll be in the playoffs. The playoffs will start on the Saturday, the 19th. The Jets will not be playing that night because there's a concert. I believe it's Bachman Turner Overdrive that's set for Canada. I'm serious. Check we were just looking at the website the other day. There is a concert on that Saturday night. Now, I guess they could maybe, I don't know, look to move it. But I'm guessing the Jets wouldn't be starting till the Sunday. So they that would be Easter Sunday, and we know they're going to start at home. So yeah, the Jets will have some. There it is. I think it's what Chingy the night before on
Nelly.
the Friday.
Oh, right there.
Nelly. Yeah.
Oh, Nelly.
Oh,
Nelly.
Chingy's opening. Sorry. Yeah,
Chingy
right,
is.
right.
I thought
Chingy.
Chingy was part of it. Yeah.
He had a banger.
And then BTO the next night. So that Sunday, presumably Sunday, Tuesday, I would think is when the first two games would be.
Okay, serious question. How many people are really going to BTO in 2025? Like, is this something that is going because I was listening to Elliot earlier today on one of the programs that I usually check in the morning. And he mentioned that on the 17th, the Leafs and the Kings play in the final game of the season. I thought the regular season ended on the 16th.
Right.
But they, in fact, play on the 17th, which means that the Leafs will not be playing on that Saturday the 17th. So he had been saying we fully expect the West series to begin that night.
Yeah.
Now, if it's Edmonton Oilers, they won't make the Kings play 2 days afterwards. So then you're looking at Canadian teams. Now, I guess Ottawa is going to be in. Toronto is going to be in. That could be Ottawa-Toronto. They might have to play that series on the thing.
Yeah.
So I guess you've got the Habs potentially as a game, but I wouldn't completely rule that out. I mean, we have seen concerts moved or put off because of that. And I mean, again, this isn't Jelly Roll or whoever, Kane Brown coming back and packing it. I mean, as I said, maybe I'm totally wrong, and maybe the Back in Overdrive tour with April Wine and the Headpins will fill the building. I'm kind of thinking that playoff game might be a little bit more important, and maybe there's something they can do on that.
Here, we're in the business of solving problems. Here's the solution: have Backman Turner Overdrive, April Wine, and the Headpins play outside at the whiteout party that night.
Yes.
Just move them outside onto the street. They can open, and it become an outdoor concert combined with the whiteout party. There, we've fixed it.
People in chat are wondering, did I just refer to Jelly Roll? I did, because, and you may have missed this, I did. I was not in attendance, but Jelly Roll had a fully sold out arena last week, I think. And like, I had no idea how big he was. He played back-to-back sellouts in Edmonton.
Yeah.
So again, that's sort of a huge tour. And then that Kane Brown guy was here, and he had a huge crowd as well. So again, I don't think, again, with all due respect to BTO, I believe we talked about taking care of business in TCB with the Jets earlier on so far. And Remis has confirmed there are lots of seats available for BTO. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I guess first things first, you find out who you're playing, and then but there is some unique, like, as we try and plan this out.
Right.
The one thing I'll say, Mike, regardless of when the games are, if game 3 and 4 of the Jets first round playoff series is in the Twin Cities, I have a feeling there'll be many Winnipeg Jet fans that will be temporarily suspending their ban on U.S. travel to get in the rig and head on down and represent the team on the road in the first couple of games.
That would be a pretty cool scenario for sure. Jets Wild, and if you're talking about trying to channel the 2018 vibes, well, what better way to do it than a first round series with the team that you played in 2018? Now, we could do without the big snowstorm that you probably recall happened that year, because didn't the Jets, they had to like make a landing in like Dryden or something, or
I think it was Duluth.
Sorry, right. They had to land in Duluth because the Minneapolis St. Paul airport was closed. And I know some people who were driving down, like, it was crazy. They were risking their lives to get down there. So yeah, maybe we'll get deja vu all over again. I mean, it almost seems no matter what now, Huss, the Jets are going to face a playoff ghost from the past. Now, in the case of Minnesota, they beat the Wild that year. If it's the Blues, we all know what happened 1 year later. If it's the Avalanche, well, we all know what happened last year. So, what better way, I guess, than to face a familiar foe in the opening round? But it remains to be seen. The Jets, though, they want to obviously just keep rolling. They also want to get healthy. Certainly sounded like some good news the other day on Neil Pionk. Scott Arniel telling us on Saturday that he's getting closer. Gabe Vilardi, much more mysterious. And I don't know how to interpret what Scott Arniel had to say about Gabe Vilardi. It was interesting that he threw out a number, specifically 4 to 6, and said it's not as easy as just saying 4 to 6. Does that mean that it could be less than 4 to 6? Is he, by throwing that number out, does that mean it could be more? And the reason that's important is it's only been 1, and the playoffs start in 2.5. And so I can't sit here and tell you today that Gabe Vilardi will be ready for game 1 of the playoffs. And quite frankly, I don't know if the Jets have that answer at this point. I fully expect Neil Pionk's in the lineup for game 1. I have no doubt about that. Gabe Vilardi, though, a little more unclear. I suppose, though, Alex Iafallo is doing a pretty nice job filling in. But you'd want to go into battle with all your weapons, and so I'm sure there's a lot of fingers being crossed about Gabe Vilardi's status right now.
Hey, Mike, before we go, just on that topic, Logan Stanley's had 3. He had 3 really strong games. I didn't think yesterday. I mean, listen, you're always worried about a bad read or something that can lead to a goal. We sort of saw that, but I think he did himself a pretty nice service in those first 3 games with the way that he played. If Pionk is back, how does this work out? We had the Hayden Fleury start off with Luke Schenn. As Schen's been moved up and Miller's been back in, they played Stanley. Is this as simple as if Schen's on the third pairing, it's going to be Fleury? But if he moves up, we're going to see Stan play with Miller? Or is there a chance we could see a Schenn-Stanley pairing that we still haven't seen yet in a game?
Well, to be clear, we saw it for about 3 shifts on Friday night. There was a switch late in the first period, and then I think they played one more shift in the second, and it didn't look very good. And then they quickly shuffled back. And I wondered, Ken Wiebe and I both said to each other, like, is this them just wanting to get a look? They had a couple goal lead at that point. Like, did they want to just see what it looked like? And if they did, I don't think it looked that great. It kind of looked what I expected it would look like, slow. Luke Schenn is not a fast player. Logan Stanley's not a fast player. Putting those two together, yes, I guess you could do it at home and you control the matchup a little better. I still think the opponent would try and get their best out against that pairing and try and exploit that. Certainly on the road where you don't have last change, that would be a potential glaring weakness. So I do think, Huss, I mean, unless you're going to move Luke Schenn up to play with Josh Morrissey and Dylan DeMello, like all the way down to play on the third pair, I think if Luke Schenn's on the third pair, I just don't see how you have Logan Stanley as his partner. I think you'd have to go to someone like Hayden Fleury just for the mobility, the foot speed that you'd need when those guys are on the ice. So, yeah, I mean, it could be a situation where Pionk being out, which has elevated Schenn, did open the door for Logan Stanley. And you're right. I think he acquitted himself rather nicely against like the Washington Capitals, against the Devils, even had a good game against the Sabres last night. Bit of a step back for sure. Couple tough reads. But yeah, I mean, I think Pionk's return would probably have a domino effect in terms of Logan Stanley and what you would want to do with him in that lineup.
Mike, great stuff. Listen, we'll catch up again soon. Enjoy the week. And next week when we have our powwow here, maybe we'll have more clarity, or maybe we'll just be getting ready for Hellebuck Bennington and then a huge one against the Stars the following Thursday. Have a good one.
You bet, Huss. Take care. Enjoy the week.
All right. Appreciate it. There is Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press. We're going to be talking with Joe Pascucci in just a minute, and we're going to talk a little Jets history as well as what's going on right now with the club. But I do want to throw this out. Why not question of the day for you all for not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray? Of course, the Jets just finished this Heritage homestand. wearing the Heritage unis. Been a lot of talk about the playoffs. Would you prefer the Jets to go with the Heritage unis in the playoffs as opposed to their current ones? Interested in what people's thoughts are on that. Let us know in the chat, or maybe Remo, if you want to do some sort of a poll, we can check back in on your thoughts on that on Fans First fan feedback coming up in just a few minutes. Hey, listen, before we do all that, a big shout out to our friends at Boston Pizza, the number one spot to hit up for Jet games on the road. If you're, of course, when the team's at home, you want to be at the game. If not, BP's the next best spot. And we got a couple late ones. 9:30 tomorrow, 9 o'clock on Thursday, Kings and Vegas. You can take care of those late night happy hour deals while you're watching the Jets at the same point. Schooners, ice cold schooners, world famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and more, all waiting for your local Boston Pizza with pick-a-player contests every game at every BP. For Winnipeg Jets action, I've been checking out the Royal Sports Instagram lately. They are locked and loaded for the playoffs, but their whiteout section has been incredibly busy. So I would suggest, gang, so that you're not left out, if you're planning for the playoffs, taking in the street parties, going to games, and you're already working on what you're going to be wearing, get on down to Royal right now for the biggest and best selection of Jets merch in white, hoodies, shirts, jerseys, of course. They have it all. But business, as Greg has told me, has been very, very brisk the last week or so. So get on down there and get ready for the playoffs at Royal. Not to mention Blue Jay season with all the new MLB stuff, tons of new Bomber gear coming in as we get ready for the season. And with spring just about here, the massive bike selection continues to grow, and all the cool stuff on the King Skate, Snow, and Surf side. Pop by and see them, 750 Pembina Highway, Royal Sports, and at Royal Sports Winnipeg on Insta for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. All right, we're going to have Joe Pascucci come and join us in just a minute. First up, though, a big cheers to the weekend that was, and to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, the Jersey poll is up in the chat. Let us know what you think on that one while we welcome in our pal Joe Pascucci. Scooch, what's up? How are you?
I am doing fantastic. How are you doing?
You know what? Hey, it's a lot of fun to be doing this and talking to Jet fans every day with the season they're having, and of course the week we've been doing a Winnipeg Sports Talk Game of the Month, where people have been buying. We've been filling up in section 316. We went 6-0 this year, Joe.
Got to keep it going for the playoffs then.
Well, absolutely.
Don't stop now.
I mean, the issue might be ticket availability to be able to get that much of a group in for a playoff game. But, I mean, it just speaks to this season overall. Now, and what's wild is that, they're on top of the league. They got a 6-point lead on the Dallas Stars, but nothing seems safe right now, and they have to keep doing what they're doing because of the push that they're getting from a team like Dallas, who doesn't seem to have plans on losing anytime soon either.
So they have to remain mentally and physically sharp going down the stretch. And, that's how I would like them to play. I don't want them to have games or a week where they could just sit back and relax and then lose that momentum that they've built up all through the season. Let's, if they have to play meaningful games right to game number 82, that's fine by me, but I think it'll all be wrapped up probably by game 80. But it's important that this team stay mentally and physically sharp and ready for those playoffs.
Scooch, you have followed and covered this team since the beginning of the NHL run. You've seen it all. In your opinion, how special is this season for what Connor Hellebuck is doing for the Winnipeg Jets?
Well, I think that the best part about this season for Connor Hellebuyck is that he hasn't had to carry the team on his shoulders to get them to where they are. I mean, he has been rock solid, big and boring, as he likes to say. But the team has committed to playing a style, for the most part, I mean, at least 90% or more in front of them, a team defensive game. And that is what's gotten them there this season to where they are the top team in the overall NHL standings. And yesterday I was commenting, I was shocked that Hellebuyck wasn't the number one star yesterday, because when that game was 1-0, even 1-1, he had to make some real big game savers before the Jets got that 2-1 goal and then the 3-1 goal. If it wasn't for Hellebuyck, they wouldn't have won that game. They would have been out of that game by the time Appleton had scored.
I mean, listen, it's almost he's the victim of his own success. I mean,
yeah,
for Hellebuyck to get the first star, he's almost got to get a shutout. I mean, I think there was a time earlier when he actually had a shutout, and I think they gave him the
and
third
didn't get the star,
the
right?
third star maybe or something, but it wasn't number one. But I just think, we were throwing that out. Like, he is right now poised to be only the third goaltender in NHL history to lead the league in wins, in shutouts, in goals against average, and in save percentage. And listen, this probably doesn't happen because of starts and where the team is in the standings. But if he were to win 6 more games, he would break a record for the most wins ever by a goalie in an NHL season. And, I often think about what Hellebuyck has done over the course of his career. I mean, winning the 2 Vezina trophies, likely winning another one, and potentially a Hart. And I agree with you, though, that at times he hasn't had to be as spectacular as he had been in previous seasons because of how well the team has played in front of him. And, all that goes to say that the team is going to have a huge part in any individual awards that he gets. But holy smokes, has he been on the top of his game all along. He should be, in my opinion, at the top of the Hart Trophy rankings. And, if he's able to do that, we'll look back at this season. Obviously, the playoffs is going to be a huge part of how people really remember this year. But for the body of work, both for the team and for their number one player, it's been about as good as anyone could have imagined, and frankly, even better.
Yeah, I was just thinking, if you ask Edmonton Oilers fans, who would they rather have right now? Leon Draisaitl or Connor Hellebuyck?
Yeah.
Who's going to win them a Stanley Cup?
Well, I mean, that's, I know they're tied to their guys, and, Winnipeg people would say on the same thing. But I mean, I think about, like, you take Draisaitl off that team, they've still got Connor McDavid, and they're still very, very good. You know, if Connor
and they have
Hellebuyck,
Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and they've got Zach Hyman, they've got guys who can put the puck in the net, but goaltending is what they don't have.
Is this the greatest individual season in Jets NHL history? I mean, the Solani 76 goal year, I would think is the one that we could maybe compare to. But when you think about the history that Hellebuyck is on the verge of, and I mean, scoring goals is how you win hockey games, and 76, it's a number that's probably never going to be touched just with the way the game has changed. And, the rookies, I mean, Solani was obviously a bit older, so he had a unique spot. But, I mean, for individual seasons, the only one that I think is really even in the conversation of what Hellebuyck is doing right now is a Solani 76 goal year.
Yeah, and Dale Hawerchuk's 1984-85 season, the only season in which he scored over 50 goals. And I think that's another season you can look back on for the Jets. That was their best season record-wise in the NHL. But the only thing they didn't have that season, besides Dale in the series against Edmonton, was they didn't have goaltending. I mean, I'm not trying to disrespect Brian Hayward or Mark Bayran, but Hayward's goals against average was near 4, and Mark Bayran's goals against average was well over 4. So goaltending is so important, obviously, to teams. That's nothing earth-shattering. Everybody knows you can't win in the playoffs without goaltending. And Connor Hellebuyck, I think after last year's performance, and I don't think he played as bad as a lot of people say he did in the series against Colorado. I think, as I remember the series, the Jets took a lot of penalties. Colorado seemed to be on the power play all the time. And Hellebuyck, made some of those weird comments that he likes to make after the series was over about, I guess, staying within himself. And I think, this season we've seen that. There was only maybe 1 or 2 games where he kind of, strayed from his big and boring. He started to come out of the net and he was giving the puck away. He stopped doing that sort of late, which is good to see. I'm always worried when Hellebuyck comes out of the net, though I shouldn't be. Right? He's a lot better. He's very good at handling the puck.
That comes up like in the stands so often. I'm glad you brought that up because, listen, when we started this show and having the advent of the live chat, shout out to Mitch. He changed his name to Helly's Shock Collar. And we had a running joke how Maurice would have a button that he would press, like get him back in the net, because disaster always felt like it. For a guy that is so devoted to his craft, I'm not sure I can remember any player already established as a top level goaltender in the NHL that has done such a 180 in how he plays the puck. It has actually turned into a strength for him as opposed to one glaring weakness. And I was in Boston. I have to mention this. I'm in Boston for the Four Nations. And we were talking with a few of the media people and then listening into a preview of the game on like NHL Network. And they talked about what a huge advantage it was for the United States because of how well Hellebuyck plays the puck. And I'm like, pinch me. I can't believe we're having this conversation. But it goes to show he is a student of the game, of his game, of goaltending. And it was very clear that was an area that he could work on to make himself better. And it's a credit to him and the athlete that he is that he has become great in that category. And a lot of us, and I agree with you, you still remember the early days where you were, putting your hand over your eyes when he went out of the net. And 2-3 years later, he's one of the better goalies in the NHL at doing exactly that.
Yeah, and I can only think, and it happened recently where he came out of the net, gave the puck away, but got back and covered up and made that stick save. And that's about the only time this season that he's had that kind of hiccup. So I think that, for me, I think he should win the Hart Trophy. But, I'm not sure what the voters are going to do. Maybe McKinnon and Draisaitl split the vote between those two, and Hellebuyck, comes in the middle, right up the middle, and takes the Hart Trophy. And I also think he's going to win the the Ted Lindsay Award, which is the one that's handed out by the players themselves to the National Hockey League Players Association. So if he doesn't win the Hart, I truly believe he'll win the Ted Lindsay Award as the Player of the Year, as voted on by the Players Association.
Hey, Joe Pascucci's with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Scooch, I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on Cole Perfetti, the goal he scored last night. As I said, that, a dangle, like Derek Forbort got absolutely posterized. And as great as the move was to make him look silly, the finish was world class. The celebration was really cool too, finishing on his knees going into the boards. But
and acting as if nothing extraordinary had just happened. He was small and boring compared to Hellebuyck's big and boring because he just skated off the ice.
Yeah, no big deal.
Then have a little laugh at the bench.
Nothing to see here. Cracked a smile eventually. What an incredible, speaking of guys that have improved and figured out some of the things that were holding them back to what they had to do to get better. You want to talk about a guy that's come around last year at this point, he was iffy to be in the lineup for Rick Bowness. And right now he's driving a line on his own. And a big part of the reason why I think Arniel had the confidence to move Ehlers to one line, Perfetti to another line. What a I don't want to say a resurgence, but what growth. I don't think there's any question he's the most improved player on the Winnipeg Jets this year. Him
and Dylan Sandberg, though Dylan Sandberg was really good last year. It just his improvement has been, being able to eat up all those minutes that he does. But Cole Perfetti, what I almost see him as little Velarde, because when he goes into the corner for a puck battle, 7, 8, 9 times out of 10, he comes up with the puck. He is so good at taking the puck away from players or controlling it back of the net. He's so smart. And one of the other things he's doing, he's now going to the net. He's going to the dirty areas where you got to score. He's not trying to be a peripheral player. He knows that you have to score. You got to get to the front of the net. And that's one thing the Jets have been doing more of late, is getting to the front of the net. All those goals against the Devils on Friday night, they were all the result of going to the net. And of course, the Appleton goal, the same thing yesterday, go to the net. And Arniel said afterwards that was a playoff type goal. And those are the goals you're going to have to score in the playoffs. And if the Jets can fight their way to the front of the net, sometimes they don't want to. Some of the players like to play on the outside of it, don't want to get their nose dirty. But in the playoffs, you have to get your nose dirty. And it's good to see that the Jets are going to the net and getting the results, because of it.
Well, they're going to need to keep doing it. I mean, the Lowry, Ehlers, Appleton line has looked good. And, Mason Appleton being exactly like the goal that he scored a few games ago might have been the nicest one he's ever scored as a Jet. The one that he scored yesterday is the one that he's going to need to do come playoff time. And that's take the beating in front of the net and be there on rebounds because they're going to come in that line really controlling their play. And then, Alex Iafallo continues to show. We often talked about Matthew Perreault as the human jumper cables and the Swiss Army knife. AI has been that for the Jets. And, a 2-goal game after scoring in his first game with those guys. I got to give him credit, but also the coaching staff, the way they put this together with the absence of Gabriel Velarde, who, certainly is a big loss for Winnipeg, and the fact that they're able to keep on rolling, keep putting up wins, and giving some other players opportunities that maybe weren't normally there, and those guys running with them and making the coaches look good.
Yeah, Arniel has pushed all the right buttons so far this season, and you love the one game at a time. We're not looking past the next game. We're not looking down the road to the playoffs. We'll worry about that when that comes. We have certain goals, right? Beat out 8 other teams, win the division, right? If they win the President's Trophy, that's great, but I really don't think they think about it at all. It's a nice little cherry on top. But no reason to put up a banner, by the way. I'm not for putting up a banner for winning the President's Trophy. There's only one banner
what are you
that
talking
they should
about?
ever put up.
What are you talking about?
It's Stanley Cup or banner or nothing else.
That's an absurd take. You were doing so well throughout this entire one and then completely go off the rails again. Well, what about winning a division?
What about you and no BTO concert on Saturday night? Come on. It's the Taking Care of Business playoff tour kicked off by BTO.
Let's look at anything they could. Maybe they join up with Mach 10 in the arena and play a few of their hits in pregame or in between periods.
Yeah,
it would be.
And you know what worries me comes to playoffs for the Jets is the schedule that they're going to have to play, because you don't. Toronto's going to play on the Saturday night, even if they've played on the Thursday night before. Sportsnet wants Toronto on the Saturday night.
Well, just Elliot Friedman, who works for Sportsnet, basically said earlier today that that's the case and why the Leafs won't be an option for them. I don't think that the NHL allows teams to play 2 days later than when they started. Now, keep in mind, if you start on the Sunday, the following week you're on the Saturday. Right. So it would go Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So they would get that Saturday game, assuming that it's on a second base, or a second.
But I worry that they're going to, Sportsnet and the NHL are going to manipulate the Jets' home schedule and have them start 9:00 home games.
Oh yeah, 8:30. It'll say 8:30 on the ticket, and it'll really start about 8:52 or 8:53.
Yeah. And I think that's totally, the Jets seem to be the only team that really gets screwed come playoff time in terms of their schedule. I'd rather see them play on, let's say, an afternoon game, because we all know Hellebuck loves afternoon games.
Yeah.
And the most important thing for the Jets come playoff time, win the first 2 home games. Because their home playoff record sucks. Win the first 2 home games, and we're good.
Take care of those right out of the way. Joe, hopefully there'll be 3 banners going up at the end of this season. One for the division, one for the President's Trophy, and one. Listen, I'm not disputing the fact that one means more than all of the others. Yeah. But by the same token, I mean, if you make the accomplishment, it still pisses me off that they blew the division in 2019 and didn't get that division banner. So it'd be nice to have a little bit of success to celebrate. But you are right. With the team and where they are right now, it will be about one thing once they drop the puck on game number 83. And that'll be winning a game, winning 4 games, and then doing it 3 more times and trying to be the last team standing. Scooch, let's do this again soon. Always love having you on the program, pal. Take it easy, and thanks for doing this.
All right, go Jets, go.
There's Joe Pascucci. You can follow him on Twitter. The best for Jets history and Winnipeg sports history. Must follow Pascucci015. Make sure you're following him if you haven't already. There should be a link to his Twitter in our description as well. All right, let's get to fan feedback. Brought to you by Fans First, your number 1 spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. I have a feeling there'll be a lot of action on Fans First and around playoff time once these games are completely full after general sale. We asked you about the heritage jerseys and what you think about the potential of wearing them. Would you prefer the heritage unis in the playoffs? And I can't say that I'm surprised. The feedback from the fans, 84% for the heritage uniforms, 16% on the 2.0s. And I love the 2.0s. I just think that the heritage jerseys are the nicest in hockey. I don't think there's a better looking team in the league when the Jets wear what they were wearing yesterday. And, you know, if we're kind of looking at changing it up this year a little bit, looking at different vibes, looking at a great playoff run, starting things different, I think might be a little good. I have heard, though, talking to some people inside the organization, that it's a lot easier than just deciding. I think the players have a big part in it. And I think there is an element of familiarity and comfort with the equipment and everything they've been wearing for the majority of the year. Although I will say, having this heritage homestand as late as they did in the season, and this is just me spitballing or speculating, I thought there might be a bit better of a chance that they might be able to get the team on board with that move. You know, considering that it wouldn't be going to a bunch of equipment and jerseys and things that they hadn't used in a long time. So anyways, we'll pay attention to that. I have no information one way or the other, but I'm not surprised that the fan feedback is 84% in favor of the heritage unis, which, as I said, I think are the best in the game. Fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, by fans, for fans, no fees. What you see is what you pay when you go to Fans First. You can check out the site today over at fansfirst.ca. All right, let's listen. We got into Mike, and obviously we've had lots to talk about with Mike and with Joe. But I do want to get back to a little bit of Scott Arniel and hear from Cole Perfetti on that goal last night. But before, Remo, let's start back up with 5 here. You know, Arniel, before heading out on the road today, just looking back at this homestand, looking back at the game yesterday, and comparing to the previous 2 seasons, Arnie was asked if in his opinion, the Jets are playing at a level above where they were at this point last season when they obviously finished with 8 straight wins.
We've been playing at a pretty high level just for 74 games, in my opinion. Like, we've done a really good job of staying away from the low lows. And I think that the way we've just been able to focus and, you know, put a game behind us and move forward to the next one. You know, last year there was a little bit more, you know, there was some tough games, some tough stretches, and obviously we finished on a high note. But I just think this is a good hockey team that knows how to play night in, night out, and they know when we're successful because when we play the way we have to play. I don't know if it's any different. You may have those analytics or those stats or whatever. I just think that we're a very confident group, and we really, from game one of the season to where we are today, that when we play at our best, we're a tough team to play against.
All right, 24 hours later, Jet fans are still talking about that goal Perfetti scored to ice the Canucks in the third period yesterday. Here's what Arnie had to say after the game about Cole Perfetti's game.
We have talked about him is that his mental part of it, that he recognizes that he's going to have highs and lows, he's going to have slumps, he's going to be in situations where he's having a bad game or a bad shift or a bad period, and he's been able to get himself out of it this year faster than he's ever been able to. And I think that he's still a young kid. For his first 2 years, he didn't play in the second half of the year, he never played when the games got, and those last 20, 25 games, 30 games, when it's the highest, most pressured situation. He never got to play in those games. And last year was a good 82 games, and he built. I know what happened in the playoffs, he didn't get to play, but at the end of the day this year, he's been able to really take all those situations and been able to learn from them, grow from them, and help him not to get in sort of situations where he gets himself down or he is his own worst enemy. I think that's probably the area the most, is his maturity mentally has been really strong.
All right, lots of love for Cole from the fans yesterday, and a lot of respect for what he's turned into from his head coach, Scott Arniel. A lot of love for the fans, too. Great atmosphere, really, for the last number of weeks in the building. The team looks ready for the playoffs, and so does the crowd. Here's what Arnie had to say about just the Jets' sellout streak in the recent homestand.
Yeah, I obviously want that every night. I know that sometimes you have to earn it as well, and I just think that the one thing about the building, whether it's to capacity or not, we've been in it. We've been doing a good job of entertaining them, and it's been reciprocated back the other way. It's loud. It is really loud. You get down to the ice level, not just for this 4-game stretch. They've been great for us all year long, and obviously winning certainly helps that. But it's a loud building, and we'd like that to continue.
Just one more from the coach as the team heads out on the road. A little bit of an injury/availability update, kind of going on what we were talking about with Mike, specifically on the goaltending.
Did baby arrive yet for Eric, or
not
still
yet,
on?
No,
okay.
not yet.
Is the plan though that he will accompany you?
We still have a day. Right here, so we'll see.
Would you consider, I'm not sure of Rasmus's status, so would you maybe be considering calling him forward up?
Rasmus is kind of back in protocol here, so he won't be coming with us on the road trip.
So you probably want to get an extra forward just to bring with you? I'm not volunteering, by the way.
We are sort of making sure before we leave tomorrow they're on that airplane. We're going to make sure, because it's a 3-game road trip, that we have enough bodies.
All right, and that coincides with Jared Anderson-Dolan and Chris Driedger getting a call up to the Jets. They'll be with the team on the road in Vegas, or in LA to start off, Vegas, and then hopefully Eric Comrie, as a new dad for the second time, joins the team. And now, as we talked about, likely we'll see someone not named Connor Hellebuck start, I would say most likely on Saturday against the Utah Hockey Club. But let's hear from Cole Perfetti. He was the star of the show yesterday with that goal in the third period. Here's what Perfetti had to say about that third period move and then snipe.
A couple of good plays along the wall from KC and Vladdy, and then just slashing across to try and push their D out. Realized I had a little bit of extra time and was just kind of trying to bait him to wait. I was just waiting for him to turn his feet, and was hoping he did, and then just it ended up working out nicely.
Did you trip, or was just soaring for the photo of it all?
No, when he spun around, he got a stick in between my legs, and so I think it actually helped because it made the shot pretty unpredictable. I didn't even know where it was going. I just tried to fire it on the net, and so I think it gave Demko a tougher time to read it too, because I was kind of falling down as I shot it, so it worked out well.
When you get deeper in the toe drag, you almost go, oh my god, I have all this time, or how's it?
Well, originally, yeah, when I got around him, I was like, I'm going to go deke him, and then I felt the stick go between my legs, and I knew I was going down, so I was just like, I got to try and get it on net, and luckily it went in.
Yeah, it certainly did go in, and then 15,000 plus were on their feet with jaws dropped. Here's Perfetti on just having the confidence to try that move.
I would say a little bit, yeah, a little confidence, understanding, when I can and can't make that play, and I've tried it a couple times here and there. It's never worked out to be a goal, but I've got around the guy a couple times. But it's just kind of more confidence and just experience of understanding when the timing of everything. And I'm not a play that you're going to make most of the time, but once in a while, it's nice to do that.
All right, now a lot of talk about his goal. Here's what Perfetti had to say about his team's play overall with another big win at home.
Yeah, I don't think we played great for a full 60. I mean, we came out good, and then the back half of the first period wasn't great, and then got a little bit better in the second and third. But you're right, they're a desperate team. They're fighting for their lives, and we knew that was the kind of effort they were going to put forth, and we knew the kind of game they played. What was it, 2 weeks ago in Vancouver? So they're obviously a really good team, and our game got better as it went along, and started playing more direct and faster. And I think that's when we're playing our best, is when we're playing quick and fast. And I mean, our KC's goal is off a quick play from Millsy behind the net. Like, instead of stopping or slowing things down, like, he just speeds it up, quick outlet pass, and then bump back to speed underneath, and then their D are pushed out. So it's like when we play like that, like it's hard to stop that.
All right, well, successful homestand in the rear view. Now it's off to LA. Here's what Cole Perfetti had to say about the team's mindset heading back out on the road.
Day by day, game by game, I think that's the same thing. Obviously, we got a tough road trip coming up and play some quality teams, but we know what we have to do. We got to take care of our business, and if we play the way we can, we're pretty confident in that. And but yeah, day by day, focus on tomorrow, focus on LA first, and then move on to the next one. So that's our mentality, and we're going to look to continue this onto the road.
Well, they certainly will look to continue it, getting away from home. But Cole Perfetti did look back, and here was thoughts on the just completed homestand.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Played some really good teams, and beat Washington again. So I mean, that's great. And then to have 3 in a row going onto the road, it's a great feeling. Winning at home, and thought we played pretty good for the most part, and it's nice. We won in a bunch of different ways, which I keep saying is a real big strength of this team. We're not a one-trick pony. We can play any style and be successful at it, and I think we showed that this homestand.
All right, so there's Cole Perfetti, who was one of the 3 stars yesterday. The other guy that got a chance to do his skate afterwards was Mason Appleton, who had the winner getting his nose dirty in front of the net. Here's Appleton on yesterday's win and his big goal.
I thought, some of the first we liked, some of the first we didn't like, and then we were building our game in the second there. And then, obviously, you got a 1-1 ball game heading into the rest of the game, and then we kind of stuck to our keys, and we knew that if we played a good, hard 20 minutes, they were a little tired at the end of a road trip, that hopefully we'd be able to capitalize and get the win, and that's exactly what happened.
Is one of the keys that you talked about getting to about an inch of the goal line to get your goal?
Yeah. I mean, we talked about kind of getting in his eyes and, getting there when you're playing a world-class goalie like Demko's, who's feeling it. Obviously, he's, gone through his ups and downs with his injuries, but he's a heck of a goalie, and then that's the only way you kind of can score goals when you can't find the back of the net in a game like that. Fly towards the puck in, Laws kind of kicks it over, and there's not much he can do on that.
All right, and one more from Appleton. I think everyone that spoke afterwards was asked what he thought about the goal Perfetti scored. Here's what Appleton had to say about that beauty from Cole.
I think everyone kind of gives each other that wow look. You don't see goals like that too often, and obviously, Fetz is a super skilled player, so he made a great move, and then the finish was just as impressive. So we were all wowed, and looking for him to smile there.
A little fun shot at his pal Cole Perfetti. There was Mason Appleton yesterday, 2 of the stars from yesterday's 3-1 win over the Vancouver Canucks. All right, Remis is back. Let's get to the Coolbet Lines before we finish up this beauty of a show today. We've got 4 games in the National Hockey League tonight, and the Dallas Stars are in action, and this will not surprise any of you. They're a favorite once again. They're taking on the Kraken. It is a 9:07 start tonight for those of you in Winnipeg that are going to be paying attention to the game. Dallas a -167 favorite. The Kraken +141. kind of hoping the Kraken might be able to find a way to crack the Dallas Stars and prevent them from making it 6 in a row and getting back to within 4 of the Winnipeg Jets. The Minnesota Wild are out in Jersey. They lost to Jersey at home on the weekend and were caught by the Blues. Now, Minnesota does have an extra game to be played, so you could say this is their game in hand. Minnesota plus 125, Devils minus 147. That game starting just after 6. The Nashville Predators and Philadelphia Flyers going at it in Philly. Philly a minus 123 favorite. And the Calgary Flames, who are down to their last few outs, are in Colorado to take on the Avalanche. The Avalanche minus 278 favorites. And the Calgary Flames are plus 230. We did put together a little partner parlay for the games tonight. We kept the Dallas game off. I didn't want to bet Dallas. I did not want to have them on our ticket. So we went with Minnesota as a road favorite. The Wild way better on the road than they are at home. So we'll take Minnesota. We're going to take Philly, who's actually looked great. They don't have the new coach bump. They've got the good riddance Torts bump. They've been playing great and seemingly having a lot of fun since Torts left. So we'll take them over Nashville. And then we're going to hit the puck line on the Avalanche. I think they've covered this in 9 of their last 10 against Calgary. Colorado minus 1.5. That one is boosted up to plus 785 right now in the Coolbet combos. One other thing we should get to right now. We've got live betting actually right now on the Canada-Scotland match. Now, Brad Jacobs and Bruce Mouat playing right now in the round robin. Canada is 3-0. Scotland is 3-0. And I'm just pulling up what the latest score is here. The men's scores. Do we have this draw? Draw 7 here. Let's get it up. All right. It doesn't look like it's underway just yet. Maybe it's starting right now. So there you have it. Canada, though, it looks like Canada has the hammer. So you can get Canada at minus 164, Scotland at plus 117. And if you are big into curling, there's going to have live betting on that one throughout the afternoon. So you can pay attention to that and get on it over at coolbet.com. It was a nice weekend at Coolbet. Did have the Cole Perfetti anytime goal yesterday at plus 370, which was sweet. And shout out to Dusty and Pat, who were on Minwoo Lee 40-1 as he won the Texas Children's Open yesterday by 1 stroke over Scotty Scheffler. I took advantage of the 30% win boost, went with Wyndham Clark, top 20. He cashed at 5th place in the tourney. So, it was a nice weekend in the lock shop and a fun show today. You can check that out on a replay if you want over at Edmonton Sports Talk and join us on Monday to Friday, noon, right before WST. As far as this evening goes, they do have a super boost, as you can see. What is it? Nate McKinnon to get a point and Shohei Ohtani to get a hit. That is at minus 103. And our buddy Pat Mayo, the PME, has already got his Valero Texas parlay up. Bud Cauley and Danny Berger boosted up to 7-1. Other ones, we've got the Lamplighters tonight. Philip Forsberg and Nate McKinnon to score just south of 5-1. The points from the point. But I need to know what Patty's cooking up because I think Patty went 4 for 5 last week on Patty Knows Puck. Tonight, okay, he's got a Michkov point for Philly, a Nichushkin point for the Avalanche over Calgary, and a Rupi Hintz point. And that one's boosted from plus 270 to plus 310. Patty's running so hot. That is an auto bet right now. They've got a couple baseball ones as well. Speaking of baseball, the Jays are 2-2. They're back in action tonight. They're minus 169 favorites against the Washington Nationals. Nats plus 143. I don't mind the over in that game. And we'll see where the Jays can get above 500. So it's all there waiting for you at Coolbet. We got the Final Four, all the number 1 seeds through in March Madness. Duke plus 105 to win that event. And odds are up for the Valero Texas Open and Live Golf Miami. And, of course, all week long, the latest from the World Curling Championships. Waiting for you at Coolbet. If you haven't played there before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. Remo, before we go, Speaking of baseball, what the hell is going on with these bats the Yankees are using right now? Are these nuclear missiles? Are the balls juiced? I mean, the homers early in this season are absolutely off the charts, but nothing has been crazier than the onslaught of balls flying out the park when the Yankees have been going at it.
Yeah, so the Yankees are using this new bat. They're calling them the torpedo bat or the bowling pin bat. And, bats have been pretty much the same as for a long time. And they hired some scientist who was like, hey, why don't we make the bats a different shape? This is an MIT educated professor. Let's put let's make the bat, the hard part of the bat, the part where you're making contact. Seems like such a genius concept. Like, why did it take so long for this to finally come up? And here's Jeff Passan's got a great article on ESPN, and this is all legal, the shape and everything. And they were launching homer after homer this weekend. I think they hit 15 homers, and 9 of them came off torpedo bats. And we've seen bats change. They switched from ash to maple like 15 years ago.
That was the last big significant technological bump in bat power.
And now that they've gone to this change, not every play, like Aaron Judge, he's not rocking the torpedo bat, but it was Giancarlo Stanton who started it last year, and a number of players on the Yankees have switched. So this was the story of opening day, and I don't know. We'll see what happens going forward. If more players switch to this style of bat, and if the balls keep flying out of the ballpark. I don't think it's like a huge.
I bet half the league's going to be using those bats by next weekend if they can get their hands on them. I mean, looking what's happened so far. Well, Gabe Morency, Gabe is convinced that the balls are juiced, though, like right out of the gate. I mean, and even today, I just saw him tweeting while we were on the air. He's like, the White Sox just put up
9.
7 in the first inning, I believe. The Royals started off with a bomb. They're up 4-0 on the Brewers, but I mean, listen, maybe we just take blind overs for until the foreseeable future, because the balls have been flying out the yard like crazy. But Blue Jays 2-2 after their opening series. They host the Nationals today at home, a 6-0-7 start for those of you in Winnipeg. And we'll see if Bowden Francis can get a win in his first start and maybe take a little heat off the bullpen, which has been quite busy so far this year. One bit of bad news for the Jays. It didn't take long for Max Scherzer to end up on the DL.
Yeah, he came in with some hand injury, and I wasn't really throwing, I think, near the end of spring training. It just seemed, I don't know, maybe they should have let him not start, and he left with an injury. So wait and see. And when you sign a 40-plus year old pitcher, I mean, you're probably gonna be missing time. And I think, teams are like planning the season now. Hey, like these guys, if you're a pitcher, you're gonna get injured. And it used to be, guys would throw 200 innings or 210, and that would be pretty good. Now you're lucky if you can get like 180 out of a pitcher. So being available, a huge skill, but you also have to plan like, hey, we're gonna have guys, they're gonna get hurt. Guys throw 100 now, and that's your arm not meant to do that. So. We'll see, how this plays out for the Jays. But as you said, a lot of runs coming on the board this season.
Yeah, listen, the bullpen's gotten beat up a little bit, but real nice starts for Gausman and Chris Bassett in their first 2. Barrios got rocked pretty hard on opening day. See if he can turn that around, and then we'll see how long Max Scherzer is out and whether this thumb thing can get taken care of, so it's not bugging him all season long. Very fun show today, gang. Great to have you all with us. Shout out to Jaden, Bailey, all of our younger WSTers taking advantage of spring break to join us live on the air. Probably a few teachers as well that are getting a chance to join us live. Great to have you all with us. And a huge thanks to Mike McIntyre and Joe Pascucci, as always, for jumping on the program. And, of course, a huge thanks to the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Game day edition tomorrow, Jets in L.A., We might not hear from the Jets until the end of the show tomorrow with the time difference and when they do the morning skate, but we'll do our best to have the latest from LA. with you, and we'll have the latest on the Kings going into tomorrow night's game. Pretty sure we'll be hooking up with our old pal DB, Dennis Bernstein of the Fourth Period, who follows and covers the Los Angeles Kings out of LA. So join us tomorrow. Should be a good one. We'll get ready for that late night game. You can maybe mix in a nap after WST and get ready for the 9:30 puck drop. But thanks to everyone. It's been a huge show today. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and make sure you hit that thumbs up here on YouTube. Appreciate you joining us today. Shout out to all you podcast listeners as well. Make sure to join us tomorrow as we get ready for the Jets and Kings and the kickoff of this 3-game road trip tomorrow right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Have a great night, everyone.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.